Hello again, everybody. I'm Chris. I'm also at the countdown this week's 40 most played country records in the USA, compiled by MediaBase 24/7 for the week ending September 13th, 2025. Before I get started counting down this week's biggest hits, let's take a look back at last week's top three. At number 3 was "Happened to Me" by Russell Dickerson. Number 2 was "Good News" by Shaboozey. And the number 1 song last week was "Backup Plan" by Bailey Zimmerman and Luke Combs. Now, will Bailey and Luke be at number 1 again this week? We'll find out soon. First, we'll get the countdown started with our one and only debut this week. It's a brand new one from a new artist named Brandon Lake. He's joined by Jelly Roll, and their song is called "Hard Fought Hallelujah." And with that one debut, we say goodbye to one dropper, and that's "I Ain't Coming Back" by Morgan Wallen and Post Malone. On to the countdown for a second week at number 39. Here's newcomer Ty Myers from Texas with his first hit, "Ends of the Earth." Slipping a notch to number 38, here's Chris Janson with "Me and a Beer." At number 37, up a notch, here's Tim McGraw and Parker McCollum with "Paper Umbrellas." Slipping a notch to number 36 is Chris Young with "Till the Last One Dies." At number 35, moving up one, it's Miranda Lambert with Chris Stapleton, "A Song to Sing." Holding at number 34 this week, Preston Cooper in "Weak." Slipping a notch to number 33, it's Ernest with "What If I Could." At number 32, up one, here's Max McNown with "Better Me for You." In at number 31 again this week, here's Megan Patrick in "Golden Child." In this 10th week in the countdown, he slips 2 spots to number 30, Dylan Scott with "What He'll Never Have." In at number 29 again this week, here's Justin Moore with "Time's Ticking." Up 2 notches to number 28, here's Megan Maroney with "6 Months Later." Well, Megan appears back-to-back this week, as she also has her number 27 song, joined by Kenny Chesney as they slip a notch with "You Had to Be There." At number 26, up 1, here's Hardy in "Favorite Country Song." In at number 25, slipping back a notch, is Blake Shelton with "Stay Country or Die Trying." Slipping a notch to number 24 in his 27th week on the chart, George Burge and "It Won't Be Long." Up 2 spots to number 23, here's Riley Green and Ella Langley with "Don't Mind If I Do." In their 31st week in the countdown, they hold at number 22, Rascal Flatts and the Jonas Brothers with "I Dare You." In at number 21 again this week, it's Parmalee with "Cowgirl." In his 28th week in the countdown, he spends another one at number 20, Keith Urban with "Straight Line." At number 19 again this week, it's Zach Top in "Good Times and Tan Lines." Holding at number 18, here's Tucker Wetmore with "3, 2, 1." At number 17 again this week, 17th week on the chart, it's Hudson Westbrook in "House Again." At number 16 again this week, it's Parker McCollum with "What Kind of Man." Slipping back a spot to number 15, it's Eric Church with "Hands of Time." At number 14, up a notch in her 14th week on the chart, it's Lainey Wilson in "Somewhere Over Laredo." In at number 13 again this week, it's Jackson Dean. The song's been on the chart for 40 weeks now, called "Heavens to Betsy." At number 12 again this week, it's Chase Matthew with "Darlin'." And the song at number 11, slipping back a spot this week, it's John Party with "Friday Night Heartbreaker." Alright, into the top 10 now. It's up a notch to number 10, scoring his 24th top 10 hit. It's Luke Combs with "Back in the Saddle." At number 9, slipping a notch, is Morgan Wallen, the former number 1 hit called "Just in Case." Here's last week's number 1 record, down to number 8, Bailey Zimmerman and Luke Combs with "Backup Plan." At number 7, moving up 2 spots, Morgan Wallen with "I Got Better." Easing down a notch to number 6 with his recent number 1 hit, Thomas Rhett with "After All the Bars Were Closed." At number 5, up 2 spots, Jordan Davis and "Bar None." In at number 4 in his 21st week on the chart, Jelly Roll climbing up 2 with "Heart of Stone." Up a notch to number 3, it's Scotty McCreery with Hootie and the Blowfish with "Bottle Rockets." The number 2 song this week, climbing up a notch, is Russell Dickerson with "Happened to Me." And the number 1 song in country music this week took 28 weeks to get here, and this becomes his second number 1 country hit. It's Shaboozey with "Good News." That is our countdown of the 40 most played country records in the USA for this week. Join me again next time. Once again, we'll count them down and find out who's got the number 1 hit in country music. Thanks for listening, y'all.